Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It has been a minute or 7 months since I last posted, but I'm back. Obviously I look a little different. My hair, I no longer have my dreadlocks. That is something for a whole nother video. So if you want to know why I took my dreads out, I actually brushed them out. So if anyone would like to hear about that or know how I brushed them out, just comment below and I'll be able to tell you guys what happened. I want to talk today about OCD, and it's something that I've talked about in the past. I posted a video probably about a year ago now about OCD and intrusive thoughts, and I still do struggle. I have like really bad days, and then I have like I'll go okay for like a couple weeks, and then I'll just have like a week where I'm just down and out with struggling with things. So I wanted to have a bit of a talk and have a bit of an update about that for you guys. It's something that I've been looking into a lot recently. I really feel like there are so many people who probably struggle with this and actually don't realize that like there's a term for what they're going through, and you know, like there's other people that struggle with it, because when you're in the midst of like having a massive, I don't know, I guess like episode you could call it, you feel really alone and crazy, and you're not. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I'll try and make sure that the video isn't too like all over the place. I'll try to keep to like some certain timeline or just like make it as smooth as I can, but I do have a habit for like jumping all over the place. Okay, so let's talk about the OCD that I struggle with. And as I mentioned in my last video, I don't struggle with the type that where you have to like check certain things like locks or the stove or things like that. Mine is purely mental. And at sometimes I'm sure a lot of people who struggle with OCD, especially like the mental like obsessions and compulsions. I have a feeling that a lot of us would sometimes say that we would, oh my god, they're so lucky to have compulsions like turning the light switch on and off, or washing their hands, or whatever, like physical compulsions. But I guarantee if we had that we would be wishing we had mental ones. So I don't think one is easier than the other at all. And I think everyone, if they're struggling with something, would agree with me. Okay, where to begin? Yeah, mental compulsions, that's mine. Mine's purely thought-based. It's a little bit hard for me to talk about because I've just come out of like a week of feeling really off and like really struggling with this. But I suppose it's very healing as well. And my main goal is to just reach out to people and hopefully they get something out of this. So pure O is what I have been diagnosed with. And over the years, I have gotten better. Definitely have. My main fear that I used to have was, do I want to be in a relationship with my partner? And my relationship wasn't that healthy. Looking back on it now, like I realized my relationship wasn't healthy. And so I was constantly looking for an out, and my mind just grabbed onto it, and it was always asking me, do I want to be with him? Do I really want to be with him? Over and over and over and over. And this went on for about a year, close to 2 years. And one day I went and I had a chat with a friend, and she told me that her and her partner broke up because all of a sudden he came out as gay. And because I feel like I was looking for an out so hard, I started to question my sexuality and my preferences. And that is something that I had never questioned before until this conversation. So yeah, I remember the first time that I thought it, and for some reason my mind just hooked into it and would not let it go. And then instead of, do I really want to be with him, the question turned into, do I not want to be with my partner because I'm actually gay? And I struggled with this for I want to say 4 years. Even after we broke up, the question was still there. Obviously the whole oh, do I want to be with him left, but there was still the question of like, am I gay? Like, what if it was never am I gay? It was like, what if I am gay? What if I all of a sudden have just like changed my preferences like pretty much overnight, after never having like any thoughts about that prior to the conversation I had with my friend. So that was very stressful. I ended up basically just testing it out, I guess. I ended up like seeing a girl for a little while, and it wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it just was like I was very indifferent to it. And so that thought eventually went away because I faced my biggest fear, as OCD would have me think, and and for a while I was like, holy shit, I've done it, like I've conquered my OCD, I am on top of the world, and then I would have times when I get really anxious, and the thought would pop into my head, and I'd be like, oh, I don't really care anymore, like that's whatever. And so all of a sudden my brain realized, oh shit, Louise actually doesn't care anymore about that. She's pretty indifferent to it. And it started attacking other themes, I should say, because OCD has themes. And it went to like harm OCD. I was so terrified that I could like hurt myself, or I could hurt other people that I love, like absolutely love. And it just didn't make sense. And because the thoughts didn't make sense and they were so dark and heavy and intrusive, I was like, like, am I really capable of like driving my car into a stobie pole and like killing myself, And the one thing that really helped with that was I was talking to my friend about this. Talking about it, honestly, is the best thing that anyone can do with OCD, but I will get back into this after, because otherwise I'll go off. I spoke to my friend about it, and I told her my concerns, and I was like, I just don't know what to do. I feel like the thoughts are there, and it's almost like I just can't escape it, and by actually going and crashing into a stobie pole, like that's what I need to do. Like, it was really weird. It's like, I don't know how to explain it, but she like looked me in the eyes and she was like, Louise, you will always make the right decision, no matter how far down the rabbit hole of like your thoughts that you are and how convincing they seem to be, you will always make the right decision. And that is something that that's like a mantra that I pretty much use for myself when I'm in like the rabbit hole of pure O and intrusive thoughts. I'll always say to myself, I'll like sit there and I'll be like, you will always make the right decision for yourself, Louise. And that just centers me a little bit, and it makes me realize that just because thoughts are there, it doesn't mean I actually have to act on them. And because they terrify me so much, I know that I wouldn't act on them anyway, so no one worry about that. Yeah, so shout out to my friend who I will share this video with, and you saved my fucking life, so thank you, with that piece of advice. And I hope that piece of advice will also help someone else. Right, so harm OCD was a theme that I struggled with. I used to struggle with like pedophile OCD, or I think it's like called POCD, I don't know. Some specialists are like, or people who I guess they talk about this kind of stuff, they're very hesitant to put OCD and stuff into categories because it is still all under the umbrella of OCD. But I think if you get specific with it, like in my like YouTube tags and stuff, I'll write like HOCD, POCD, stuff like that. So people who like that's what they're specifically looking for, they can find it because it's like specific, it's not just OCD. So pedophile OCD, I was scared that I would like do something to a child, which if anyone knows me, and I mean, I know that I would never do anything like that, but all rationality and everything goes out the window when you're in this rabbit hole and you feel like you don't know who you are, you don't know what you're capable of. What else? I think that's the main ones really that I've struggled with. The one that my OCD grabs onto now is like my identity. So anything to do with my identity, I think it's because I lost myself. This is like a realization I just had. So it's cool to have this on camera. I think that because when I was with my ex-partner, I completely lost my self-identity. Completely lost it. And then I was on medication for like severe anxiety and depression, and then that kind of stuff, and it doped me up so much to the point where I didn't know who the fuck I was. So I think that my OCD, it attacks my core beliefs, my core values, and my identity, because I worked so hard to rebuild who I was after that relationship and after the trauma that I faced with all of that. And I remember saying to my therapist right now, it's all coming to me, that my biggest fear is losing myself again. Wow, okay, excellent, this is cool. My biggest fear is losing myself again. And she goes, well, what happens if you lose yourself again? And I was like, I don't know if I can go through that again. She's like, you'll find yourself again. You'll find yourself every time. But yeah, that's a really cool realization to literally have on camera. So I'm loving that. Let's now talk about probably how I deal with my episodes. Let's once again refer to them as. So as I said, I'll go through times when I am very like I'm great, like I am completely normal and everything, and life is perfect and whatever. And then every so often, I think with any kind of mental disorder, or not disorder, that's a fucking stupid word, I'm sorry, illness, because it totally is, all you need to feel is like anxiety, and then I think that anxiety triggers like a whole bunch of different stuff. Like there's a whole spectrum of things that then just like kicks in, and off you go. What happens with me is when I'm really stressed, probably over a few days, what will happen is I'll all of a sudden like get this, like the feeling of anxiety of like, you start kind of freaking out, you get like really cold and clammy and shaky. I get really hot from my head up, I'll get chills down my body, and I know when it's coming on. I'm very aware of that now. Because the thoughts that I have are so closely linked with that feeling. When I get that feeling, say if I was getting pulled over by the cops, when you get pulled over by the cops, you freak out, you're like, oh my god, what have I done, like was I speeding, blah blah blah. You get like really nervous and like and because I could be in that situation, and because I have those physical feelings, all of a sudden I would associate those feelings with the thoughts of like, oh my god, what if blah blah blah, have all those OCD thoughts begin. So that's also how I know like the things that I think aren't necessarily true for me, because they're only triggered by my anxiety. When I'm in a normal state and I'm like, normal, I guess, those thoughts don't exist. So, and I can think of those thoughts. I can be like, I can now be like, oh, what if I'm gay? And I get no physical reaction. I got maybe like a little bit of nah in my chest, but apart from that, nothing. Okay, because I've really worked myself to be like I do not care. Like I could not give a shit about that anymore, What else? So yeah, the anxiety and the physical sensations, I feel like for me, they're very closely related with like the thoughts. When one happens, it like triggers the other and vice versa. How I deal with this kind of stuff. Sometimes if I'm not in a very anxious state, I'll be able to have about a 1 minute buffer zone from between when I have the first thought and then before I start. I call it spiraling out of control pretty much. And it's a you have to be really clever about how you deal with it. I'll have a thought and then I could start trying to sing a song to like get my mind completely off it. I can watch usually what I'll do is I'll feel the emotion go through my body, like the anxiety come up, and I just will not judge it. And I'll say to myself, Louise, just because there is a physical reaction, it's your anxiety, you're cool, it doesn't mean anything, it's just a physical reaction, you're good, and I'll just sit with it and I'll just breathe and I'll let the feeling come up and I won't judge it, I won't do anything with it, I'll just keep calm. And then the thoughts, like, I can watch the whole situation just like float away from me. It's like buying into it. And like when you have a thought or you feel like a sensation in your body that doesn't feel good, the worst thing I feel like you can do is be like, oh shit, like I have to do something about this really quick or else blah 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 blah. Like, don't try to fight it. Fighting it's like the worst thing. It's like when someone goes, oh, don't think about the pink elephant in the room. It doesn't work. You're gonna be like, oh, what was that? Pink elephant, right? Okay, what was I trying to pink elephant? Like, it's just stupid. But it's so easy to do. My friend who also gave me the life-saving advice, I feel like I've shared a lot of my thoughts with her. She knows like a lot about me, and she is the most, I don't want to get emotional. She is the most, like, least judgmental person I know. And she just, she has this way of, so I'll tell her, like, something really fucked up and she'll be like, so, like, she doesn't judge me, like, nothing like that. She just goes, yeah, so, like, I still love you, or like, you're fine, like, it's not a big deal. And I think sometimes the best thing for people with like pure O and intrusive thoughts can do is to confide in someone that they like really care about and that you have a great relationship with, because people on the outside have a way of just being able to be like, yeah, I've had those thoughts before. Like, everyone's had those thoughts before. It's just we don't go through the process of like over-analyzing them like, say, I would, because that's just what my brain does. Lucky for me. So yeah, confide in someone that you really trust, and yeah, it can, that's the biggest thing, is being able to talk to someone and just cry, or just being like, this is what I'm dealing with. And when you say it out loud, all of a sudden you realize, what am I even worried about? That's like, that doesn't even make sense. That's not true for me. So allowing your space between like what's in your head and what comes out of your mouth to someone, it can make a world of difference. I was struggling the other night really hard, and I have a book down there which I take to my psychologist, and she gives me like little pointers and stuff. And I wrote in there my main trigger thoughts for the day. And then when I saw them on paper, I was like, what? And I just sat there and I was like, did I really just write that down because that's what I've been stressing about for 3 days? And then I was like, that's bullshit. Like, that's not me, and just allowing yourself space to just write it down on paper. And I don't know if that'll work for anyone else. I didn't think it would work for me, but it brought me a lot of relief. And then I followed it up with 10 things I'm grateful for. Because gratitude in the midst of having a really traumatic situation happening to you, I think can make a lot of difference. What else do I do to cope? Anyone with pure O and intrusive thoughts and everything will constantly be checking. That's the compulsion side of it, is you constantly check to see if the thing that you're thinking matches up with either what you're doing, what you're saying, how you look, like stuff like that. That is one of the most painful cycles you can get into, and I guess that's what OCD really is. It's like you're constantly checking and checking and checking and obsessing over checking and, you know, checking over obsessing, and you know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy. It's a head fuck. One of the worst things that I have done is Google shit. Google is great for some things, but if you are constantly typing into Google, like, am I really gay, or are these just thoughts, or my go-to is HOCD, or like, am I actually gay, like stuff like that, because you will find temporary relief in doing that for about 5 minutes if you're lucky, but then it will hit you again like a ton of bricks, and then you'll have to Google some more. Then you'll feel fine for 5 minutes, and it'll hit you like a ton of bricks. You have to Google some more. You know, it's a cycle. The sooner that you can stop yourself and not buy into what your mind is like trying to trick you with, because in the end it's your brain misfiring. That's what I've read, and I think after a while your brain, it's like its go-to thing, because that's just, I don't know, I'm not a fucking expert with biology or whatever, but yeah, I know it's like a brain misfiring thing, if anyone wants to research that. What was I what was I saying? I was doing so well. I was talking about brains. Getting yourself out of the checking thing. Seeking reassurance is something that, it's a very messy cycle to get into. What helps me, and it is the hardest thing to do, is to not research. It's as simple as that, but it's not as simple as that when you are balls deep in your mind with those deep dark thoughts, and you're like, is this real? Am I the only one? I wonder if anyone else has had experiences with this, blah blah blah. The other thing I've really found that helps, instead of Googling things like HOCD or POCD or harm OCD or like, am I really capable of that, is I listen to, give me a second, I found this really good podcast. I think it's called the OCD Stories. And it's all about like professionals and people who have gone through OCD and that kind of thing, and their story, which, disclaimer, can be triggering if they're talking about a situation that you're going through in like in your mind. So like, I've listened to a podcast where it was like about HOCD or like homosexual OCD, that kind of thing, and like that triggered me like a shit ton, because it's talking about my biggest, like what was my biggest fear, you know. So the OCD Stories, I don't know if you're going to be able to see, it looks like that. I'm really sorry for the quality. I will link it down below, because that is really good to listen to other people's recovery stories instead of just Googling shit about like, oh my god, what is wrong with me and blah blah blah. Doing stuff like this instead and hearing about people's recovery gives you so much hope, and I think that also helps you get out of the cycle of checking and checking and checking, because that's like positive reassurance that like people can, I don't want to say like recover, because I feel like your mind will always, like, even if it's like 10 years from now and you haven't had an episode, it could come up one day, you know. But it's like, it's manageable. Like, people are on the road to recovery and are actively living their lives without being dominated from this like darkness in their minds, like, you know. So that's something that's really helped me, is the OCD Stories podcast and their website and everything, and I'll link it. And thank you to the person who like runs that and everything. You're a lifesaver. And the other thing that really helps me is to remember that the people who often have these thoughts are the people who are the most like kindest, gentle, wouldn't hurt a fly kind of people, you know? And that's why these thoughts are so disturbing to so many of us, because we know that we're not capable, but it's the question of what if that gets us, you know? So yeah, I think that's all I have to say for now. Let's open up a discussion though down in the comments, because I think it's so important to talk about this stuff, because there could be someone who is out there right now and feels like there's no other option than to like hurt themselves because they feel so bad about what's going through their head. And yeah, like if that's you, I just really, really hope that something I've said has like given you some hope or helped you or given you the courage and the confidence to actually speak about what you're going through. And yeah, like let's be there for each other and let's have a little community, because I think support is really important. Also, if you do have anything to say in the comments, I just ask that you put a trigger warning above like your comment in the first little bit, just saying trigger warning, and just like the theme or whatever you struggle with kind of thing, just so people are aware that they might get triggered, because I hate going onto a forum and reading something when I'm trying to give myself reassurance, and all of a sudden I get triggered the fuck out of, and there's nothing worse than that. So trigger warnings are very important, and I know a lot of us would appreciate that. But apart from that, I just really hope this has helped someone. And please remember that you will always make the right decision, and that you are not your thoughts. And that sentence has saved me from myself so many times. You are not your thoughts. Okay? If you know of someone who is struggling with this, please link them this video so they can hear someone else's experience. And hopefully something I've said helps. If you have a parent who needs to hear someone's experience, who might not understand, please link them this video as well, because I think support from your parents can be like a total game changer. You know, when you don't have to, you can be open. You can be having a really bad night and you can go up to your mum or your brother or sister or dad or whoever and be like, oh, I'm really struggling with this tonight. And like, don't feel ashamed to talk about it. Like, you're only human, and there's reasons like for everything. Like, there's reasons why like these thoughts trigger you and everything. You just have to find out. Like, I don't know, I'm gonna stop rambling. But I'm wishing you guys all the best. As I said, please share this around. Please comment below, trigger warnings, all that good stuff. And I will speak to you guys soon. Take care.